Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to bring you the core insights from really compelling sources, cutting through the noise. Today we're diving into, well, one of the biggest challenges we face, the global energy transition and, of course, climate change. We all know the big targets, that 1.5 degrees C goal from Paris, the EU aiming for net zero greenhouse gases by 2050. But Finland, they've set an even tighter deadline, net zero carbon by 2035. That's ambitious. And with everything happening geopolitically, the risks of relying on fossil fuels are clearer than ever. This makes finding sustainable solutions absolutely critical. So what's emerging is a really key part of the answer. It's something called Power to X. These are technologies that promise more than just environmental wins. We're talking big investments, economic growth, new jobs, the whole package. Which brings us right to our main question for today. How exactly is Finland's research community stepping up in this vital area? To figure that out, we're focusing on one single, really comprehensive source. Assessment of Finnish Power X Economy Research, 2017-2023. Scientific articles and research activities.
Our mission here is to unpack what this study tells us Finland's strengths, what they know now, and importantly, where the gaps might be in Power to X research. Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed.
Exactly, and it's incredibly timely, this assessment, because, while Finland does have great natural resources for renewables and policies that support Power to X, recent studies have actually shown something interesting. The Nordic countries, Finland included, have been, lagging behind major players like Germany, France, the UK when it comes to actual tangible Power to X projects on the ground. And it's that gap you see between the ambition and the current reality that really pushed the authors of this study. It prompted them to do this first really thorough overview of the whole Finnish Power to X economy. It's just essential for understanding where things are now, where the research needs to head to support those big climate goals, and frankly, what challenges they might be up against.
That makes a lot of sense. So before we get into what they found, I'm curious about the how. How did they map out a whole country's research landscape? Was it just counting papers or more involved?
Oh, it was definitely more involved. A really robust, kind of two-pronged approach, you could say. First, they did a deep bibliometric analysis, basically a systematic, quantitative look at the published science. They went through 334 peer-reviewed articles from Finnish institutions published between 2017 and 2023. And to find those, they used a pretty extensive list with 97 specific keywords within the Scopus database, which is, a major academic database.
Okay, so a big data guy first.
Right. But they didn't just stop at the numbers. The second part involved surveys and interviews. They actually talked to people at 12 key Finnish research institutions. Think major universities like Aalto and LUT, plus research centers like VTT. The idea was to get the qualitative side information on their labs, their research strategies, what they considered their most important work. And something really neat came out of those interviews. They actually helped create a new framework for categorizing all the different concepts within the Power to X economy, which then fed back into making the bibliometric analysis even smarter. So it was quantitative and qualitative working together. Very thorough.
That sounds incredibly thorough, yeah. Combining the data with human insight. Now, you mentioned foundational elements. One finding that jumped out early apparently wasn't about reactors or catalysts, but words, terminology. Why does getting the name right, like being consistent with Power to X, actually matter so much?
Oh, it matters hugely. This study really flags it as a critical point because inconsistency can just fracture a field. It makes it incredibly hard for researchers to find relevant work, to build on what others have done. It hinders that whole systematic analysis. This study looks specifically at how often different terms were used between 2010 and 2023. And yes, they found significant inconsistency. Power to X itself did become the most popular term recently, especially 2020-2023, but the abbreviations PCX and P2X were hardly used.
Okay, so not commonly used, but what's the harm if some people use them?
Here's the kicker. When people did use PTX or P2X, it often caused massive confusion with totally unrelated fields in medicine, like paclitaxel chemotherapy or P2X cellular receptors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Imagine trying to find the latest on green hydrogen and getting results about cancer drugs or cell biology. It just clogs up the search results, makes discovery really inefficient. So the recommendation from this study is crystal clear. For visibility, for clarity, stick to the full term, Power to X. Use it consistently in titles, abstracts, keywords, the metadata. It seems small, but it helps unify the field globally.
That's a fantastic point. So like agreeing on road signs before you build the highway system.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the methodology sorted, the language lesson learned. Let's get to the core. What are the big topics that Finnish Power to X research is really digging into, and who's doing the digging?
Right. This is where we see the landscape take shape. The study found the most researched topic by a fair margin is the power-to-X economy itself. That accounted for just over 25% of the findings, and that's significant. It shows the focus isn't just on individual bits of tech, but on how it all fits together, the whole system, the integration, the economics. That's a strategic view.
A systems approach, basically.
Precisely. After that, the big areas are renewable hydrogen production, about 16.7%, then CO2 capture, very close behind at 16.4%. Then comes hydrogen itself, mainly storage and use at 12.3%, and power-to-X technologies generally at 11.8%.
And within those broader categories, are there specific focuses?
Yes, definitely. For renewable hydrogen production, the research leans heavily towards electrolysis. Makes sense, right? Using Finland's renewable power to make green hydrogen. For CO2 capture, it's mostly about capturing it from industrial sources and cement plants, steelworks, rather than pulling it directly from the air, though that's there too, just smaller. Hydrogen research, as I said, is storage and use. How do you keep it? How do you apply it? And under PTX technologies, there's a strong tilt towards power to liquids, or PTL, especially making e-methanol. That's a really versatile synthetic fuel. When they looked at carbon dioxide as a topic, it was mainly about utilization, turning CO2 into something useful, not just capturing it. There's also research on materials and raw materials, about 8.4%, mostly linked back to improving hydrogen production tech. And finally, legislation and policy comes in at 6.9%, but it seems focused more on the broad PTX economy rather than super specific regulations for particular technologies. Maybe a gap there.
That's a really clear breakdown. Strong focus on electrolysis, industrial CO2, e-methanol, and the overall system. Okay, so who are the institutional heavy hitters here?
Well, the study points to Aalto University and LUT University as having the most comprehensive research spread across these topics. They seem to be involved in many areas, but VTT, the Technical Research Center, is also very strong, as are Åbo Akademi University and the University of Oulu, often with deep expertise in specific niches. And it's not just institutions, it's people. The data set behind this study includes 930 authors. That's a significant, growing pool of talent, mostly concentrated in key groups at places like LUT and Aalto.
930 researchers. Wow, that's commitment.
It is, and the surveys also brought out the interdisciplinary nature of it all. Unsurprisingly, engineering and technology faculties are leading the charge. That's about 80% of the contributions. But you also see significant input from natural sciences, around 14%, and even social sciences chipping in with about 6%. The social sciences are looking at things like business models, project management, legal aspects, which just highlights, power to X isn't just an engineering problem. It's societal. It's economic.
Absolutely. You need that full spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, great overview of the what and the who. What about the impact? Is this research influential? And how collaborative are these Finnish researchers?
Good questions. On influence, the citation data gives us clues. This study found that papers on the power-to-X economy, especially those linking to energy systems and climate change, and papers on CO2 capture, tend to get cited the most. That suggests these topics are hitting a nerve internationally, getting noticed, and generally, original research papers had a pretty good normalized citation score, meaning they hold their own in the global literature.
Okay, so the research is getting out there. What about collaboration?
This is where it gets really interesting, almost paradoxical. International collaboration. It's quite active. About 37% of the articles involved researchers from other countries. And crucially, this study shows that international collaboration boosts the impact. Those papers tend to get cited more.
That makes sense. Broader perspectives, bigger networks.
Exactly. Most of that collaboration is within Europe, but interestingly, the single most frequent partner country was China.
China, okay. Now the paradox.
The paradox is the domestic collaboration. Within Finland itself, collaboration between different institutions was surprisingly low. Only about 19% of articles showed Finnish institutions working together. And this study really flags this as a potential weakness, or at least a missed opportunity.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be working closely together given the national goals.
Right. Considering the overlapping expertise and specialized facilities across Finland, there seems to be a lot of untapped potential for synergy right there at home. Stronger internal links could potentially speed things up, avoid duplication, really leverage that specialized knowledge. It seems key for hitting that 2035 target. Oh, and industry collaboration was noted in about 12% of papers, mainly involving a few key players like Oulu, LUT, VTT, Aalto, and Åbo Akademi. So international links strong, domestic maybe could be stronger.
That limited domestic collaboration really does stand out, doesn't it? A clear area to maybe focus on. All right, moving from the papers and people to the physical stuff. What about the labs, the equipment? What infrastructure supports all this power to X work? Did the survey shed light on that?
They did, although this study also noted it can be tricky to draw sharp lines around purely PTX infrastructure. A lot of advanced equipment gets used for multiple research areas, which is pretty normal. But yes, they identified key facilities. There are important open access facilities available more broadly. Examples include the University of Oulu's materials analysis labs, vital for catalysts and stuff. Alto works with VTT on national raw materials research infrastructure. LUT University has its own Power to X lab, and they're building a new one specifically for synthetic fuels due in 2025. That's a big signal.
Definitely shows commitment.
For sure. Then you have the University of Turku working with Aalto Academy on materials and chemical analysis. And of course, the National IT Center for Science, CSC, providing the heavy-duty computing power needed for simulations.
Okay, so shared resources, but also dedicated spaces. What about more specialized setups?
Yep. There are also restricted access, specialized setups for more specific tasks. Like at the University of Oulu, they have facilities to study hydrogen embrittlement in steel, super important for safety if you're building hydrogen pipelines. They even have an electric arc furnace simulator for green steel research. Jyväskylä University has specialized chemistry infrastructure. Luke, the Natural Resources Institute, has biogas facilities. Tampere focuses on thermal conversion of fuels in their energy and biorefining labs. And the University of Vasa has the VE-Bake Labs, doing really practical work on hydrogen fuel lines, engine testing, operating at technology readiness levels 4-5, so quite advanced, moving towards application. So yeah, Finland definitely has a diverse toolkit of infrastructure backing up the research across the whole Power to X chain.
Wow, okay. From fundamental material science to nearly application-ready engine testing. That's a comprehensive picture. So let's wrap this up. What the Assessment of Finnish Power to X Economy Research 2017-2023 scientific articles and research activity shows us is, well, a nation seriously invested in Power to X. There's a solid growing research base, clear strengths in systems thinking, hydrogen, CO2 capture, but also some, let's say, interesting dynamics like that domestic collaboration gap.
Exactly. And bringing it back to the practicalities, this study also points clearly at some significant research gaps that still need attention, particularly around things like quality control and safety aspects of these new technologies, and also digging deeper into legislation and policy beyond just the broad economic view. These aren't trivial points. They're absolutely critical for actually deploying these solutions safely, getting public buy-in, and making sure they fit smoothly into the existing energy system.
Right, the real-world hurdles.
Precisely. So the final thought, perhaps, connecting back to that source. Assessment of Finnish Power to X Economy Research 2017-2023. Scientific articles and research activities. Given Finland's huge climate ambitions and considering these research strengths, but also the gaps identified, especially around safety and specific policies, how might boosting that domestic interdisciplinary collaboration become the real catalyst, the key to unlocking Finland's potential to truly lead the global green transition? And maybe more broadly, what lessons could that kind of focused, collaborative acceleration offer the rest of us around the world? It really makes you think about how targeted funding, stronger partnerships within a country, and strategically tackling those known research gaps might be the fastest route to the sustainable energy future we need.